Hey, this is CrossFitTracking.com, and I'm going to do a general review, and I'm going to couple it, general review for the Apple Watch 5, and I'm going to couple it with a overview of functionally what I like about the apps and watch faces and things like that. Just the iOS 6, so you'll see that actually on the Apple Watch 4. But as far as the Apple Watch 5 goes, there's a few things that are new to it, but to me, I didn't find very much to be that different with the 5 versus the 4. The only thing that I found to be functionally usefully different was the always-on display. Obviously, that's what everybody's talking about, but I have found it to be more purposefully just the same as the Apple Watch 4, except for the display itself. I did like the fact that he had an always-on display option, although it's funny because compared to all the other always-on display options with the Versa 2, with the Garmin Venue, with the Samsung Galaxy Watch Active 2, I found it just to be sort of a little bit lackluster. You know, it obviously functions well. But for whatever reason, I didn't find it to be as useful as I thought it might be over the Apple Watch 4 because the wrist gesture was so effective in the original design and the battery life less effective on the Apple Watch 5. I actually ended up surprisingly turning off the always-on display and just using it like a 4. And there have been differing debates about the quality of the heart rate tracking on the 5 because of power consumption or, you know, conserving power, somehow taking a little bit away from the quality of the heart rate tracking. But overall, the screen was great. What is interesting about iOS 6 is that the watch face options are so much better. I hated the watch face options of the Apple Watch 4 and the original, iOS 5. Because you didn't have a simple watch screen that had a big time in the middle, not with hands, but with actual digital time, as well as a multiple of complications. And they fixed that with the the iOS 6, where you can have a quality screen of time where you can see it, but lots of complications. One of the things that I didn't like or haven't liked in general about the Apple Watch is that you have either complications on the watch face itself, which would link you to basic stats, or you had a huge list of apps and little tiny, for me, just little tiny, app touch points. So it really, and I'll show that in the video itself, but I found that it's great to now finally have a visible, clear digital watch with a bunch of complications. So at least you can have somewhat of the widget effect to be able to dive into a particular information point that you wanted to use. Obviously, everything about the Apple Watch, it's one of the most advanced, especially if you're an iPhone user, one of the advanced smartwatches. Spotify worked great. The alarm worked great. Responsiveness to arm lift, great. The battery last on the Apple Watch 5 I found to be okay, a little bit worse than the Apple Watch 4. It looks like if I used it if I enact theater mode at night. So basically you hit theater mode so that the screen doesn't automatically come on with the wrist gesture. I was able to get about 60% of use during a day, a 24-hour period, and that would mean it would last somewhere around 39 hours total. And if I didn't enact theater mode, I just sort of kept it. Obviously, the do not disturb enables at a certain time period. But if I didn't put on the theater mode at night, I got about 80% of use in one day's time, or about 29 probable total hours until it would be completely depleted. It would just deplete a lot more battery life over the course of the night because you're moving around and the screen is turning on at different times when you're not even aware of it. As far as a couple of different pieces the Apple ecosystem hasn't added, that some of the others have already made as widgets, the two biggest ones that I functionally find crucial or useful are sleep tracking and hydration tracking. So I have found the Auto Sleep app to be the most accurate. It's interesting because I first thought it was not that accurate, but then I recently with the Apple Watch 5 have tested it against the Whoop 3.0. And the Whoop has one of the highest ratings as far as expected accuracy with sleep tracking, and the Auto Sleep app on the Apple Watch is measuring up pretty much on point with the stats and details I'm getting for the Whoop sleep tracking. So that's a big plus. So, you know, obviously this compares with Garmin, it compares with Polar Ignite. Those two have great sleep tracking. Polar Ignite probably has the most in-depth version, but I found it to be at least a great solution to the sleep tracking. And the other is hydration tracking. I've used Waterminder, which is, these are just paid apps, which is kind of a problem that they don't come with it out of the box. But Waterminder is great. You can track you can put it as a complication or sort of like a widget on the watch face, and you can add water throughout the day. And then it'll also, which is interesting, none of the other widget functions on other watches have this, but it will remind you to drink a glass of water. So that helped you to stay more on track with your water goals. The Apple Health app, obviously, I think it could be visually more functionally useful, but I found it to at least have a lot of information. It's got heart rate variability tracking, which it doesn't translate into anything useful, but at least it has it so you can sort of see your trends over time, not just your resting heart rate, but your heart rate variability trends over time. So I found that to be useful. So as far as workouts go, it still continues to be the best optical heart rate tracking on a wrist-based sensor that I've used in any of the CrossFit exercise components. It's done continually well on the 5 and on the 4. Again, when I looked at it back, you know, I stepped back from the benefit I was getting from the Apple Watch 5 and the usefulness of the heart rate. I just have found that the Apple Watch 4 is the better solution for the price point. And now with Black Friday, everything's being discounted. So the Apple Watch 4 and a 44 millimeter can be picked up for $329, which really, you know, is $100 cheaper than the Apple Watch 5. And the only functional difference with the Apple Watch 5 is the always on. One thing that is a pain is that you can't have always on display during your workouts if you have the Apple Watch 4. So I'm going back to the Apple Watch 4 as the main Apple Watch that I prefer and like, because it has excellent heart rate tracking. You get all the health benefits. It now has these new watch faces where you can see the time and have a multiple of complications you can get basic information on relatively quickly. And I'll show that in the video that I'm attaching here. But I found the Apple Watch 4 to be a better bang for the buck. And as far as accuracy on all these other things, just missing the always on, which for some reason, when I tested the Apple Watch 5, did not find to be as useful. So we'll turn into the apps themselves now, but this is the Apple Watch 5 review from CrossFitTracking.com. Hey, this is CrossFitTracking.com. I'm going to run through some of the basic functional usefulness on the Apple Watch iOS 6. So it's the most recent update. And the main thing I found to be the most beneficial upgrade to it, because I don't really use compass, is the new watch screen. So you have the ability to set a watch screen that now has a high quality digital with multiple complications. So we got 5 different complications here. One of the problems with the Apple Watch in general is that there's not a widget. So now we have to have these complications if we want to have functional access to widgets. So some of the same basic things, you know, it does do great with notifications, does do great with, obviously the screen is very visually beautiful. But I have really loved the fact that we have these new, obviously have these, you know, traditional old school ones, but I've loved that we have this access to nice quality digital time, easy to read, and multiple complications available. Now I use a few basic, basics of these. You know, one thing that I've really gotten into is hydration tracking, and I've used Waterminder because you can use it as a complication, you can track. And one thing that's great about Waterminder is it gives you an auto alert if you need to drink more water. Easily access the battery life, things like that. One of the things that is also very useful is the auto sleep. So in auto sleep, you can track your sleep as well as get an idea of your deep sleep. So I have found this to be actually very accurate when compared to the Whoop. You can see your day readiness. Now this is somewhat similar to the Garmin's body battery or the Polar Ignite nightly evaluation that it gives you your readiness for the day. So if you get quality sleep, this also shows you I have a well, you can't see, you can see it somewhere in here, the deficits. You either have a positive or a minus sleep bank. So I've got a little bit of extra, there it is. So you get a little bit of extra, I am up 3.9% on my sleep bank. So if you're running at a deficit, it'll tell you that as well. So that's another app that I use on a regular basis. The Cardiogram, another high quality app. It mostly works better on the iPhone itself for showing a better picture. And you can see this on the website, CrossFitTracking.com, where you run a workout under the Apple Health or under the workout app within the watch itself. And then you can run the better, visibly more useful heart rate tracking on the Cardiogram. And it's just a free app that helps you track those things. This obviously has EKG, which is useful. I don't use a lot of these apps. Obviously, it'll tie in when you're driving. The turn-by-turn directions will pop up automatically. It is nice that you can use you can see the stock market, or you have some other functional access to higher in-depth things on the watch face itself, outside of just weather and things like that. You can use Spotify. Obviously, Spotify works very well. You can play it on the watch. You can play it on your phone. You can automatically turn your phone to start playing Spotify. So it's probably one of the best Spotify versions that I've tested, as well as Shazam. You can add multiple different basic phone applications onto the watch itself and get sort of miniature versions of those things. Everything else I've found to be, it's the best smartwatch. The reminders that you put on your phone automatically appear on your watch. So it combines in the ecosystem very, very well. But otherwise, for fitness tracking, you just have your basic fitness. You can scroll through different options. I just use, the cross training for CrossFit on a regular basis. When you go into the app, which you can see, oh, look, see, time to drink some more water. When you go into the app, or when you go into the website, CrossFitTracking.com, you can see functionally how the CrossFit or the Apple Watch workouts appear. I don't find the heart rate graph to be very visually helpful, but the Cardiogram automatically populates, and I find that to be very helpful. I don't use the rings. I think, okay, that's great, that's neat, but I have not found the rings to be that helpful to me on a daily basis. How much I stand. This is a side note, but on the Samsung Active 2 was actually the only reminder to move that I have ever used functionally, because it says you can do these 3 different types of stretches, and it's really simple. Just, okay, I'll do 3 stretches, or, I'll do 5 stretches and pick which one. And that actually got me to move for the first time of any device that I've used. I don't use any of the other specialty upgrades, and on the Apple Watch 5 didn't find anything other than the always on display to be that useful. But the biggest change with the iOS and the functional things that I use on either the Apple Watch 5 or the Apple Watch 4, I just went through here because it's all the same OS, and this is the biggest upgrade. Obviously, you still have all these other neat things, but the most useful, I want to see the time visually very clearly, and I want to have access, because they don't have widgets, which I thought the Active 2 Samsung watch was the best usefulness of widgets. This at least is some sort of a medium that you can make use of. And this is the Apple Watch iOS 6, whether it's the 4 or the 5, review from CrossFitTracking.com.